The last thing Dave expected that Tuesday morning was the police. Two officers, one tall and gaunt, the other built like a retired linebacker, their badges catching the harsh fluorescent lights of his garage office. They stood there, expressionless, as the familiar scent of motor oil and the distant clanking of metal against metal filled the silence between them. "Dave Miller?" the taller one asked, though it wasn't really a question. His eyes were calculating, assessing. Dave wiped his grease-stained hands on a shop rag. "That's me. Something wrong with one of my customers' cars?" The stockier officer's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about your wife, Mr. Miller." A cold knot formed in Dave's stomach. "Kate? What about her? When's the last time you saw Mrs. Miller?" The taller officer pulled out a small notepad, pen poised. Dave's mind raced backward. "This morning. She left for work around 7:30, like always." He glanced at the clock above the service counter, 10:42 a.m. "What's this about?" Neither officer answered. Instead, the stocky one asked, "And where were you between 8 and 10 this morning, sir?" "Right here. Ask any of my guys." Dave gestured toward the garage bay where 3 mechanics worked. Something wasn't right. The way they were looking at him, like he was already guilty of something he didn't even understand. "Do you know someone named John Barton?" the taller one asked suddenly. The name hung in the air, foreign yet strangely familiar. Dave searched his memory but came up empty. "No. Should I?" The officers exchanged a look Dave couldn't decipher. "Are you absolutely certain about that, Mr. Miller?" The stockier officer leaned forward, his voice dropping an octave. "Think carefully." "I've never heard that name before in my life," Dave insisted, the knot in his stomach tightening. "What's happened to Kate?" The taller officer closed his notepad with deliberate slowness. "We didn't say anything happened to her, Mr. Miller." Dave's hands began to tremble. The garage sounds faded away, replaced by the thundering of his own heartbeat. Their careful phrasing, their measured responses, something terrible had happened, something they weren't telling him. "I want to know what's going on," Dave demanded, his voice rising. "If something's happened to my wife, I have a right to know." "John Barton," the stockier officer repeated, ignoring Dave's outburst. "Kate never mentioned him? Not even in passing?" A coldness spread through Dave's chest. 15 years of marriage, and now these strangers were suggesting some secret, some hidden part of Kate's life he knew nothing about. "Who is he?" Dave whispered, suddenly afraid of the answer. The taller officer finally met his gaze directly. "That's exactly what we're trying to figure out, Mr. Miller." In that moment, Dave realized his life was about to shatter into unrecognizable pieces. Whatever truth these men carried with them, it would change everything he thought he knew about the woman he'd slept beside for 15 years. Dave wiped the grease from his calloused hands, the smell of motor oil clinging to his skin like a second layer. 20 years as a mechanic had built his patience, the same patience that had made him a formidable soldier before that. His garage was his sanctuary, a place where broken things made sense, where problems had solutions. If only life were so simple to repair. He glanced at his watch. 3 hours before Kate expected him home. A smile crept across his weathered face as he decided to surprise her. Maybe grab lunch together like they used to, before the late nights at work, before the distant look in her eyes, before the subtle shift in her affection. The drive home was quick, his mind drifting to the early days. Kate's laugh, her hand in his, promises made under starlight, 15 years of marriage, 15 years of rebuilding a life after the military had hollowed him out. Dave pulled into the driveway, noting the unfamiliar sedan parked across the street. Neighbor's visitor, probably. The house was quiet as he entered, using his key to slip in unannounced. But something felt wrong. A different cologne hung in the air, competing with Kate's familiar perfume. He heard it then. Upstairs. Their bedroom. The rhythmic creaking of the bed frame he'd fixed just last month. Time slowed as Dave ascended the stairs, each footfall silent from years of combat training. He didn't rush, didn't need to. The truth was already unveiling itself in his mind with mechanical precision. The bedroom door wasn't fully closed. Through the gap, he saw them. Kate, his Kate, with a man he recognized from her office. Their bodies tangled in the sheets he'd washed on Sunday. Dave didn't interrupt, didn't slam the door open. Instead, he retreated as silently as he'd arrived, his face a mask of stone hiding the volcanic rage beneath. Back at his garage, Dave sat alone, a glass of whiskey untouched before him. In his other hand, a small metal object, a remnant from his military days that he'd kept illegally, a stun grenade, non-lethal, designed to disorient. Perfect. 3 days he waited, confirming patterns, watching the affair unfold like clockwork while he pretended everything was normal at home. Kate didn't suspect a thing, not even when he kissed her goodbye that morning, knowing her lover would arrive by noon. At precisely 12:37, Dave entered his own home for the second time as an uninvited guest. The sounds from upstairs were unmistakable. He removed the pin, counted to 3, and tossed the grenade into the bedroom. The flashbang did exactly what it was designed to do: blinded, disoriented, created chaos. What Dave hadn't accounted for was the man's panicked reaction, lurching blindly toward the window, crashing through with such force that the glass became weaponized. The arterial spray painted the white bedroom walls crimson. Kate's screams became something primal as her lover clutched at his severed throat, eyes wide with the realization that help wouldn't come soon enough. Dave stood in the doorway watching. This wasn't the humiliation he'd planned. This was something darker, something that awakened the cold, calculating soldier he thought he'd left behind years ago. "I just wanted you to feel exposed," Dave said quietly, more to himself than to Kate. "I didn't expect this." But deep down, as Kate's lover took his final gasping breaths, Dave realized part of him had expected exactly this. And worse, part of him was satisfied. The media descended like vultures. Within hours, what happened at the restaurant became front-page fodder across town. Local man confronts cheating wife. They all had their angles, their twisted versions of my pain. None of them knew the hollow feeling in my chest, the way my lungs seemed to forget how to work properly every time I remembered the look on Kate's face when I dropped those photos on the table. The police questioning was almost a relief. Something procedural, something to focus on besides the wreckage of my life. Detective Morris kept shooting me these glances, part sympathy, part suspicion. "So you just happened to have a private investigator following your wife, Mr. Harmon?" "I had my suspicions," I told him, my voice flat as pavement. Turns out I was right. They released me after a few hours. No charges for property damage. The restaurant manager decided not to press the issue after what happened. One small mercy in this goddamn hurricane. I couldn't go home. Not to our house, filled with 8 years of photographs and shared furniture and her fucking scented candles. I checked into the Westridge Hotel instead, paid for a week up front, and finally listened to what the PI had sent me. I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and hit play on the audio recording. "Do you love him?" Michael's voice, soft and uncertain. A pause. Kate's gentle sigh, a sound I knew intimately. "It's not about love. Dave is safe, stable. But with you I feel wanted again, desired, like that girl I used to be." The glass in my hand cracked, not shattered, just a hairline fracture running from rim to base. Perfect metaphor for my marriage, apparently. "He doesn't see me anymore," Kate continued, oblivious to how each word was driving splinters into my heart. "We became roommates somewhere along the way. I tried, Michael. I bought lingerie, planned dates. Eventually, I just stopped trying. Another swig of whiskey, burning all the way down. She had the fucking nerve to make this my fault? The texts from her friends started pouring in. Some apologetic, some accusatory. How dare I humiliate her so publicly? As if I was the villain in this story. The truth settled in my stomach like lead. We'd been dying by inches for years, too comfortable to notice the decay. But comfort wasn't enough for Kate. She wanted excitement, wanted to feel young again, wanted to be something more than the woman who fell asleep beside me every night. I deleted the texts without responding, turned off my phone, stared at the hotel ceiling as darkness seeped through the blinds. Everything we'd built, our home, our future plans, the illusion of trust, all of it contaminated now, unrecoverable. In the growing darkness, something hardened inside me. This wasn't just about Kate's betrayal anymore. It was about the years I'd wasted, building a life with someone who could discard it all for a few moments of excitement. I wouldn't just survive this. I would make damn sure she regretted every minute of her little adventure. Life has a peculiar way of revealing its twisted sense of humor. Just when you think you've reached the bottom, the floor gives way to another level of darkness. That's what happened after I executed my plan against Dave and Kate. I hadn't expected the aftershocks. Shortly after word got out about Kate's affair, rumors started swirling through our social circle about the other man. Let's call him Robert. Turned out, Kate wasn't his first indiscretion, not by a long shot. Robert had quite the reputation as a serial cheater, something I might have discovered if I hadn't been so consumed by my own pain. 3 weeks after everything imploded, I received an unexpected visitor at my door. Sarah, Robert's wife. She stood there, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights, clutching her purse like it contained her last shred of dignity. "You're Dave, right? Kate's husband?" Her voice trembled slightly. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "Ex-husband, technically. What can I do for you?" "I need—" She hesitated, swallowing hard. "I need anything you might have that proves Robert was with Kate. Text messages, photos, dates, anything. My lawyer says it could help with the divorce." I studied her face, recognizing the same raw devastation I'd felt not long ago. Without a word, I invited her inside. As she sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee I'd offered, I carefully selected what evidence to share. Not everything, just enough to help her case without revealing the full extent of my involvement in exposing the affair. "I'm sorry you're going through this," I said, meaning it. She was collateral damage in a war she never enlisted for. "Did it help?" she asked suddenly. "Getting revenge. Did it make you feel better?" I glanced away, my silence more revealing than any answer I could have given. A week later, a letter arrived. Kate's handwriting on the envelope. I almost burned it unopened, but curiosity won out. "Dave," it began, "the doctors say my hand will eventually heal, but the scars will remain. Much like what I did to us, I suppose." She wrote about therapy, about finally confronting her destructive patterns, about losing her job after the scandal, about waking up each night in cold sweats, reliving the moment when everything fell apart. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She knew better than that. "I'll never understand why I threw away something real for something that was nothing but shadows and lies. You deserved better. And while I know it brings you no comfort, I live with that knowledge every day." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. The revenge that had consumed me now felt hollow, like a fire that had burned itself out, leaving nothing but ash and the lingering smell of smoke. Some say revenge is a dish best served cold. What they don't tell you is how cold you feel after you've eaten it.